This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by the folks over at Extractioneering, who remind you that when it comes to legal marijuana concentrates and extracts, you can't afford to choose anything but the best. Badly processed concentrates can not only be stripped of certain cannabinoids, terpenes, and other essential compounds, but can also have all kinds of dangerous chemical solvents and concentrated pesticides within. Don't mess around with garage quality concentrates, both for the sake of your wallet and your health. Open up extractioneering.com to see what the very best in legal marijuana concentrates and extracts looks like. Then ask your local dispensary whether they carry Extractioneering products. That's extractioneering.com, which is spelled like engineering, but with the word extraction. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Monday, May 1st, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 236 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day is the big news that broke on Friday that the federal government is, at least for one more week, still barred from spending money prosecuting state legal medical marijuana. Regular listeners know that the Department of Justice has been unable to spend money prosecuting and persecuting medical marijuana patients and providers thanks to the RohrabacherFar Amendment, which has protected legal medical marijuana in one form or another since it was first passed in 2014. This year's version is called the Rohrabacher-Blumenauer Amendment, which reflects the fact that co-sponsor California Representative Sam Farr has retired, leaving Oregon Representative Earl Blumenauer to step in. On Friday, the U.S. Congress passed a short-term spending bill that extends the already enacted Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment for at least another week, giving lawmakers time to hammer out an agreement on the next budget. This is obviously a dynamic and fluid situation that we'll report back on as it develops. The state of California released a set of draft regulations for how their medical marijuana system will operate as they usher in fully legal adult use sales. The rules released on Friday are a comprehensive suite of regulations governing everything from cultivation and processing to testing and dispensing. Marijuana Business Daily has a good summary of the details, but in short, the draft language would give preferential treatment to existing medical operators in securing adult use licenses, require industry participants to use a seed-to-sale tracking system, and stipulates the dosage requirements for edibles, setting a maximum amount of THC per package at 100 milligrams. This is a good story to click over and read in full. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at MJTodayDaily.com and on our Twitter account at MJTodayDaily. 4 of the 5 licensed medical marijuana companies in New York State have filed suit against the New York Department of Health to stop it from adding additional licensed operators. The 4 companies, represented in the case by the New York Medical Cannabis Industry Association, say that adding more licenses right now threatens their financial solvency, as the state's tightly restrictive medical marijuana market has translated to anemic sales that have forced the providers to lose money each month as they look ahead to more lucrative days. An accompanying request for an injunction to stop the process of granting the additional licenses was denied. The 4 companies, Etan, Vireo Health, PharmaCann, and Bloomfield Industries, claim that the Department of Health is not authorized to add additional licensees and that current market demand doesn't come close to supporting more licensed providers. This is another story we'll be following closely. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Extractioneering, who recently teamed up with Weed Maps to produce a nice video talking about their philosophy and approach to crafting legal marijuana concentrates and extracts. You can watch the video over at extractioneering.com, which is spelled like engineering but with the word extraction. Extractioneering's head brain, my friend Dan Hayden, is an experienced PhD biologist who has spent as much time in a professional bioengineering lab setting as he has in various cultivation rooms and legal marijuana concentrates labs over the course of his 20-year career. Dr. Dan and his team at Extractioneering take their work extremely seriously, which is exactly what you want from the folks creating your legal marijuana concentrates and extracts. Don't settle for anything but the best. Swing over to extractioneering.com and see what everyone is talking about. That's extractioneering.com. All right, time for the Blitz. Leafly has a great AP story up highlighting the work of Georgia Republican State Representative Alan Peake, whose name should be familiar to regular listeners for his legislative efforts to push for more progressive marijuana laws. What you might not be so familiar with is the work done by Representative Peake in actually distributing high CBD cannabis oil to Georgia families with sick members unable to find medical marijuana in their state, which has laws allowing for the use of medical marijuana, though not the actual cultivation, processing, or distribution of. As the AP is reporting, Representative Peake spends thousands of dollars every month getting CBD oil from out of state, which he gives for free to Georgia families in need. This is another great story to open up and read in full. Keeping our browser locked in at Leafly for another headline, we have another click-worthy piece looking at a potential testing scandal brewing in Washington state, with testing lab Peak Analytics being accused of being a little overly generous when it comes to reporting THC content and contamination metrics. The company is the target of a complaint filed by members of the state's legal marijuana industry with the Liquor and Cannabis Board and accused Peak Analytics of systematically doping their testing results so that clients' marijuana or marijuana products were more likely to show higher THC counts and less likely to be flagged as contaminated. The complaint said that Peak Analytics' looser standards are well known in the state and that its peer testing labs are being harmed due to losing business from cultivators interested in shopping around for the best results. Click over for the full sprawling read on this one. On Friday, the Mexican lower house of Congress voted to legalize the use of medical marijuana by patients and researchers. A similar bill was approved by the nation's Senate in December, sending the bill on to the desk of President Enrique Peña Nieto, who is expected to sign it into law. There's potential trouble brewing in Florida's medical marijuana industry with a previously announced $177 million acquisition of a state-licensed medical marijuana company by Canadian company Aphria in potential danger of collapsing. As the Miami Herald is reporting, infighting and a flurry of lawsuits by investors and partners involved in the Florida side of the deal is risking the demise of the sale to Aphria, which would be one of the largest Canadian to American marijuana industry acquisitions to date. This is a big, complicated story with lots of actors and moving parts, so swing over to the Miami Herald to dive into the whole thing. The Arkansas Board of Health finalized a set of rules for how their state's soon-to-launch medical marijuana program will operate, with the state legislature set to take up a final vote on adopting them later today. If approved by lawmakers, the rules would be set as the founding guidelines for the medical marijuana program, set to open up for business sometime next year. The Florida State Legislature is making some progress on implementing the broad expansion of their medical marijuana program voted in by ballot initiative in the fall, with the State House on Friday amending a House medical marijuana bill to bring it more closely in line with a Senate version. The newly amended House Bill 1397 now allows for patients to consume marijuana via edibles and vaping and removes a requirement that patients have a 3-month relationship with the doctor recommending their medical marijuana use. It could be teed up for a full vote by the House by next week, with the state Senate version expected to go for a full vote sometime this week. This is another one we'll be tracking closely. And finally for today, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell is making marijuana headlines thanks to comments he made on Friday about his views on marijuana. In an interview with ESPN Radio's Mike and Mike show, Mr. Goodell said, quote, "I think you still have to look at a lot of aspects of marijuana use. Is it something that can be negative to the health of our players? Listen, you're ingesting smoke, so that's not usually a very positive thing that people would say. It does have addictive nature. There are a lot of compounds in marijuana that may not be healthy for the players long term. All of those things have to be considered, and it's not as simple as someone just wants to feel better after a game. We really want to help our players in that circumstance, but I want to make sure that negative consequences aren't something that will be held accountable for years down the road." Unquote. You know, the level of hypocrisy there, given what we know about how the NFL has dealt with concussions and player health in general, is pretty galling. I'll leave this one at that. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at MJTodayDaily and visit our website at MJTodayDaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Extractioneering, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at MJTodayDaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in, starting your day with Marijuana Today.
One take, Shay. One take.